Give thanks, my Lord, for the thought-provoking conversation and presentation. Yeah, we've learned a lot. Some of us thought we knew something, but you've given us fresh information to add up to the repatriation conversation we already know. So we'll now open up for discussion. We are inviting reasonings, comments, questions, contributions for what the presenter said. Please, if you are interested in making a comment or asking a question, we ask that you come on board, but you introduce yourself to us. Some of us would like to know you because it's the first time seeing you. And so, if any comments, is somebody want to pass any comments, the floor is open. Radio Culture, are you coming in?
Yes, you are coming in. Yes, indeed. Yes, you are coming in. Thank you very much. My apologies for coming in late, and I feel very guilty taking the first question after coming in late. But do pardon me for that. Sometimes, family issues and things like that kind of step into it. Apologies. But yes, so I have a few things that I have to set off the discussion by way of questions and something that we can all reason about. Russ, I want to look at repatriation as the rhetoric. And when I say rhetoric, I don't mean it in a negative way. I just mean we're looking at it as something that's a concept versus the reality of repatriation. And there are so many different angles to this thing that this is a loaded question. I don't even know if we can deal with all of it, But really, my question is, we've recently, and even things like Afrobeats versus reggae music, for instance, has unveiled some deep cracks within our ranks as Black people, Africans, home and abroad. Now we're dealing with repatriation. My question, I guess, is, are we looking through the same lenses? Are Africans home looking through the same lenses as Africans abroad when we say repatriation? And even going all the way back to Garvey, let's face it, let's have frank discussions. Mm-hmm. Was Garvey's concept of repatriation the same as what continental Africans would have been looking at as, okay, repatriation, yes, let's have our brothers return to us. I'll just end it there for now. I have some other issues that if time permits, I will come in and
I think it's brilliant. These are brilliant points you're making. I see them as one point, though, for the most part. It's like, I just want to start out by talking about the situation in Sierra Leone. The divide and conquer thing. There was always this logic of those from the West are superior. They're civilized, right? And then we on the continent are to be civilized, right? And these ideas kind of like carried forward to Garvey's time. If you read some of the documents that were coming out of the UNIA when they started out, they talked about, Black people uniting, Black people working together. And then one of the things in there is that we're going to help civilize the backward people of Africa, because those were the dominant ideas, that were in the world. So I totally agree. We're dealing with, and all of us, we're carrying some baggage. That's why we always have to be aware. These reasons are important because we have to always be aware of the ideas that are in the world that may be coming at us, that may not necessarily be in our favor. But that doesn't take away from Garvey's work and what we've benefited from, his work. I got a lot of inspiration from Garvey. And I got a lot of inspiration from reading the Philosophy and Opinions, when we were younger. Very few voices were speaking that way, in a very pointed, forceful, vigorous way. But what you're saying is the thing. I like how you start with rhetoric, right? Is a problem. We have some major problems. I was trying to just, kind of like paint a picture, general picture, but I like where you're going. These are the things we have to address. There are situations where you realize that we see things differently. Some of us, there are clashes. We know that, as it was when people started coming to Sierra Leone, and Liberia, today their situations. Now, I'd love to know what you're talking about, the thing about music, the Afrobeat and reggae thing. But there are definitely situations. Now, it's up to us, right? Not to look at these things as fixed situations. We have to look at every situation as in flux, right? What shot are you going to call now if you have to make a decision that would redirect things onto the right track versus saying, oh, look at that guy, he's messing it up. Oh, look at this fucked up thing this person is doing over here. You see what I mean? Because we, people from Africa, to come to the U.S. and we look at our people here and we say, oh, you people don't have a culture, you people are slaves. We forget that we were all enslaved in Africa, man, or we're affected by it. You know, we've seen pictures of people carrying slabs of stone and chains around their necks. Am I going to say that it's not me? I never knew slavery. No, slavery affected all of us. So it's stupid for us to come from Africa to the U.S. and say, hey, you were slaves, you were never slaves. It's just dumb. You don't know your history. That's the thing. So we are all dealing with certain things we have to clear up. You know, so someone from the U.S. who comes to Africa and he thinks we're backward. Yeah, it's a problem. When they come to Africa and they think, what you saying?
But I think that goes to the heart of my question, though, right? Because you can flip that as well and have a situation where people are also like, oh, you sold us into slavery.
Definitely, and that's a conversation we have to have.
Yes, and then even on the motherland, you've mentioned like Sierra Leone, Liberia, but even in Ghana, we have practical examples of, say, repatriated brethren and sisters, beloved brethren and sisters, who would hold meetings and keep out locals as a policy.
Serious thing, yeah.
We need to talk about that. I won't take
it's a problem. Yeah. But I'll say one thing quickly over there. Most people like to belong to what they're familiar with. We need a culture of not being too comfortable with the familiar. That's another thing that's kind of missing. You know, we like to go where, you know, so people come to Africa and say, oh, man, I feel like, you know, I have to just, these are people I know. This is what I know. I want to be with people. You know, just how it was when, you know, the ACS was setting up Liberia and all that. These are the people I know. We have to break out of that. We do have to break out of that. There's serious problems, brethren. I totally agree with you. But yeah, we have to work out of it. You know, we have to be more, like His Majesty would say, you know, we have to be willing to work through the obstacles and work out the things we want happen. You know, make the things we want happen. Africa Oasis Creators is not just about building businesses and all that. It's about working, creating ways of thinking too. You know, and what you're doing is helping, definitely. Yeah.
Give thanks.
Give thanks, yes.
Well,
give thanks. Prof, are you coming?
Yes, I give thanks.
Yes, my lord. Yes, Lord.
Yeah, first of all, Ras Kwesi Anochi, I give thanks for such a detailed, thorough presentation. And I want to say, you know, as I was, you know, taking notes over here, I was like, wow, this could be a topic on its own. That could be a topic on its own. That could be a topic on its own. So it's a lot of things that you just looked at right here. And I have a lot of questions, but, you know, I'm not going to try to ask all of them. But for the purpose of facilitating reasoning, I just wanted to ask if most of the time when we hear of colonization, are you all getting some feedback in there?
A tiny dot of it.
Okay. So most of the time when we have colonization, America often craftily cuts itself out of the whole thing as if it did not participate in the colonization of Africa. We see, for instance, Thomas Jefferson wanting to say that, you know, he actually said that, you know, there is no way that blacks and whites could ever live together, and therefore he was setting up a program to send black people in America to Haiti. And then we have the American Colonization Society. And, you know, we also know that Liberia, even though not officially, was de facto a colony of the United States. Can you speak a little bit to the work of the American Colonization Society as it relates to the colonization of Africa?
Reggie, you want to start trouble now? Well, yes, that was a problem. And that's why I understand a lot of people who are like, we're not going to work with these people. We love Africa, want to go to Africa, but we're not going to go through these people, right? Because it was just what you said, it was a colonizing project for them. It was for white people, right? It's just that black people want to go. So it's like, okay, if this is my means, my doorway to Africa, I'll use it. You know, and there were clashes between them and the black people. Yeah, it was a colonizing project. I want to keep it short. Major problems all the way. We're just talking about how the people were rising up just when the Maroons came in. They were rising up against the very people who had brought them to. Look at what they called the program that brought them to Sierra Leone, the Sierra Leone Resettlement Scheme. Scheme sounds a little fishy over there, right? Yeah, it was on the terms, you know what I mean? So yeah, definitely you see that it was a problem, and they divided the people. The people who had called the native people were clashing a lot with the people because they'll go seize their land. They'll sign contracts with the chiefs without, you know how people know to read English and all that too much. And you bring me a paper to read, and you say, hey, okay, you put your signature here, and some of us, and you tell me what it is. But they're saying one thing and the thing on the paper is another. That's why Menelik went to war with them. They said, man, forget the spit thing, man. You know, they bring a paper, you know, something like Empress, you know. Empress look at the paper and rip it. Say, no, forget this treaty. We didn't go war, right? So yeah, they did that and got land. And then later the people were like, no, we didn't mean you could come and take this land like that. So there were wars. And let's remember Samuel Doe's situation, right? We had these Americo-Liberians who were ruling from Tubman all the way down to Charles Taylor, them, right? And, you know, the natives had a problem with that. So people like Samuel Doe, no matter what we think of their politics or whatever, they were reacting to that. And the thing was savage what happened. You know, we know what happened. It was crazy. You know, it's a terrible thing that happened in Liberia. And Sierra Leone too going through things. You know, but what you're talking about is crucial. Just a little bit I want to say. I love to hear what other people have to say too. But it is a problem when we look at repatriation just in sweet terms. Come home, everything is nice. It's been a very unpretty story, you know. But both sides have things to work on too. That's what I think, and I'm sure you can extend. Am I touching on the answer a little bit, or is there something I'm leaving out? Okay, give thanks.
No, yeah, give thanks for the answer. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Yes, sir.
Can I chip in real quick again? So you mentioned something about the Joseph project or Jacob project or something to that effect, right?
Joseph,
yeah. That was under President Kufuor.
It was Kufuor rather, not Mahama, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry, man.
But
I'm so sorry about that. I apologize.
No, that's not even important as far as I'm concerned. My concern really is about what is in that country, right?
Good.
But I think that at the base of that was what I just mentioned a short while ago about a certain preconceived notion from a certain angle that continental Africans sold their brothers and sisters, into slavery. Now, that's a false narrative.
Absolutely.
Which, can be debunked whichever way you look at it. It could never be possible that what did we do? We split ourselves into two Kotoko hats, and half was selling Kotoko. Like, what was going on there? You know, it makes no sense. Yeah. It absolutely makes no sense. Absolutely. But to me, that just self-projecting was a confirmation of that idea that yes, we did sell you into slavery and we're sorry. Just like Joseph in the Bible, or his brothers sold him into slavery, and then later on he became their master and whatnot. That whole idea was flawed as far as I'm concerned. And if they're still carrying on with that, we have to revisit history properly before we think of the project. And then maybe we may decide to call it a different name. Just say it.
Give thanks. I thought it was something that just happened in one like that Joseph project. I thought it came and went. But the idea is what last the black people coming back to Africa. I don't know. You know, I don't even know much about the project myself. I was just listing the number of efforts, and number of things people heads of state have done. I was talking about Nkrumah as a head of state, almost taking over this idea of coming back to Africa, which was the thing that was not happening before Garvey, right? Garvey comes in as like he's the fork in the road, right? This is where things change, and our Africans are doing this. I totally agree with you. I know there are some is it annual ceremonies where chiefs go to perform these atonement rituals. It's a real thing over there. It means some things to some people, but like you said, we're gonna talk about, and I think we need a lot of conversations around the topic of the slavery thing, because the people who were the first abolitionists, as Professor Mambwese Okoye would say, were the Africans. Like we're saying, we started by talking about how, I think you were not here when we started. As soon as while the ship was on the water, right? Africans who go on the ship, risk their lives. You don't know the people that are on the ship, but just it's Africans. And go risk their lives, fight. A lot of times they lost their lives. But they were trying to take over the ship so they would free the people on the ships. While the people were coming in, from, let's say, what they call a long walk, from Salaga to the coast, people who didn't know these people, most of them were coming from what we call the Sahel, other places around it. We didn't actually know them in person. But when you see your people coming, there were what we call bands or warrior groups who would waylay them, attack them, and free them. There were people in other part, like, the Guinea area, that other western part of West Africa, there was leaders who would say, look, if we catch anybody, this territory, you can't come and do any slavery here. It was happening in Benin too. They'll tell you, if any white man is caught trying to do slavery here, we'll cut off your head. But there'll be another generation or some later that maybe there'll be some kings who are pushing the slavery thing. Someone will say, the Benin people were into slavery. The Asante people were into slavery. There were generations where, confronted to them, they were like, no slavery, nothing like that among our people. You know how they were holding the person of a person real high. But slavery was a thing that meant different things in different cultures, but they were never engaged in that. Then another time, maybe under someone else's reign, these things happened. But that doesn't mean that a lot of people were Asante people who were taking us captives too. What about that? There were people who would help the white people capture people, and they end up in the hole too, in chains.
Exactly.
That must hurt, right? So when people were breaking into the forts, right? Like the Anomabo, all the Christianburg, Anomabo, Cape Castle, all those places, people were attacking those places to free black people they didn't know in person, right? Risking their lives. It wasn't always successful. Matter of fact, they lost more than they won in terms of achieving their goals, right? But they were willing to risk their lives. So anybody who's talking about Africans sold each other, they just don't know their history. Africans were the ones who were trying to abolish the thing. We didn't use their kind of language. I'm sure we had more profound, meaningful language to describe what we were doing. But we get caught up in using your language and say, abolitionism started here in America. Nah, man. Or the British abolished slavery. The only reason they abolished slavery was that the rebellions were too many for them. I mean, they couldn't handle it. And they were being embarrassed. In Jamaica, they were getting their asses whipped. They said, people they brought from Africa, as soon as they hit the ground, they started fighting. These Akan people, these Gromantin people, as soon as they hit the ground, they start fighting, right? So it was too much for them, and they had to start, like say, we're going to abolish. People who were defending slavery started saying, no, wait a minute, this thing is not going to work, so let's abolish it. It wasn't because they were feeling for black people and they thought slavery was bad or anything. It just was not good for their reputation. They were trying to project onto the world and for business. So they say, okay, we abolish slavery. And also, it was a little game between them and each other, trying to show who was morally superior, amongst them and the Americans and all that. So yeah, you're right. I think we have to have discussions on this. I think there's a lecture that's going to come up on this topic where we could go into some greater detail, just get into it some more. And I mean, it'd be good to hold some discussions at your end too, and I would love to hear what people have to say about some of these things.
Yes, I hold one question coming in.
All right.
Hello, my name is Kwezor Pangwadi, and I just had a question about like the people who talked to the FBI to try to get Macus Garvey deported.
Go ahead.
That was
What was the question?
My question was like, could you elaborate more about the people in America, like black people in America that were working against Marcus Garvey?
Okay, good question. I don't know if I'm going to use names, but I can just give you the little bit I have on what they did. For the most part, they were doing their jobs. They were cops, right? Like how you have black people join the police, right? So they're doing what the government wants them to do for a paycheck, right? And they're thinking of things like public safety, right? These people are a threat to America because they're talking about, man, if you go, they wanted black people to be like, if you're attacking black people, if white people are attacking black people should just take it and go call the police or go to the courts or write a petition. And these guys were like, no, if you try to hurt me, I'm going to hurt you. Black people were saying that, right? So that disrupts public peace to them. So they send these people out to stop black people who are saying, we are not going to bow down to you. We're not going to do things on your terms. So these black people, there are a lot of black people who are always working with the system against people who are trying to fight for us to be free, right? So what the main person, the one person that actually worked on this thing with that affected Garvey was a detective, right, who was working with the U.S. government, and he joined the UNIA for the purposes of collecting records on Garvey. And actually, he found his way to a position where he had access to records and communications. So he'll be in the meetings, they'll all be talking nice and everything, right? Some people suspected him, though, People were like, man, this guy's a little fishy. But he would try to, pull out his cards and show you that, hey, I'm black and I'm committed. But what he was actually doing was he was going through all their records, trying to look for something that he could use to say, oh, these guys are committing a crime or they've done something that's not legal. And that is how they got Garvey on the mail fraud thing. Am I helping with that kind of answer? Are you getting something from there? Give me what do you think I'm missing? Is there anything you wanted to hear that I haven't touched on?
No, not really.
Okay, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on them. We'll get a chance to talk, and I'd like to hear what you think about some of these things. I'm very curious. I know I'm going to learn something from what you have to say about that.
Say something? Can I say something?
Yes.
Very well. Greetings to everyone. This is Martin, straight from Ghana.
Yes, Frederick.
Very well. First, man is grateful for this, and I'd like to apologize for not listening the other time to Will's conversation. Because we had some family meeting, that is why Manu joined at the time. But whenever we talk about when you talk about Black Panthers, some of them being in prison at this moment, I started getting emotional.
I feel the same.
Yes.
I feel exactly the same way, man.
And I wish there could be something we could have done, either as a people, to free our people, because they have been fighting. I think that after Obama has been in power for 8 years or more, something could have been done about this, because they are not criminals. But let's leave it there. Then, you talk about Garvey and shaving. He said about something about shaving. I didn't get it very well.
Okay, it's actually it's in the Declaration of the Human Rights of Negroes of the World. Back then they used to call us Negroes, right? So you can take a look at it. You get it online. I think the Rastafari Council has it on their website, so you can get a chance to look at it. But basically, what she was what that clause or that article, as they'll call it, whatever, is about. How I'm sure you saw this when you were growing up. I remember growing up in Ghana and seeing it. When someone gets arrested, it's like they'll shave them. They'll shave their head.
Okay,
it was a
very
colonial
well.
thing, right? So Garvey was saying, the UNIA's paper was saying, or their document was saying, stop that. Stop shaving people's hair when you're arrested. And they were fighting against all whatever they thought were abuses.
Thank you very much for the clarification. Thank you very much for the clarification. With regard to, some black people saying that, especially those from diaspora, say we sold them into slavery. I think that when we talk about slavery, both black people and white people are uncomfortable because there were slave traders on both sides. Yeah, some families were slave traders. So when we talk about slavery, some black people feel as uncomfortable as white people do. And we mustn't forget that. So we should be able to accept that criticism in good faith. That they could have been our cousins, our clan members, our family members, or our ethnic group members who engaged in slavery. So we should be able to accommodate that accusation in good faith. But we can also point them to the fact that just as they had house slaves and free slaves in America and they lived together in peace, in spite of the fact that some of us may have indirectly or directly dealt in slavery, we can still come together and work something because I hardly hearing them accusing each other of being house slaves and free slaves. I hardly hear them leveling those accusations themselves. So
well, it happens though. I mean, they may not use that term, but there are people who talk about sellouts and all that too. So
very well. So if they were sellouts there and you're able to live with them and see them as brothers, why can't they see us brothers? Even if we were slave trade, even if some of us might have been guilty of slave trade. That's the angle I want to take this from. But I think that we shouldn't get so offended when people make that statement because it contains some grain of truth.
Yeah, but two things.
Yeah, coming.
I'm saying two things we have to remember. That African who worked with them wouldn't have done like. Why don't they blame the Jews that worked for Hitler for what happened to the Jews? There were a lot of Jews that facilitated Hitler's thing. You know that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Why is it when it comes to Africans? Because the narrative is that Hitler was going to do it anyway. If the white world had to go pull people from underwater to do this thing, they would have done it. I'm just talking, in a very, you know what I mean? Yeah, they were the ones who were carrying out this project, right? They were going to do it anyway, right? There was a story of a white guy came to Congo, and he saw some of the explorers, a statue of one of the explorers over there, and he was saying, "Man, you guys should have killed these guys, as soon as they came." This is a white guy, Anthony Bourdain, maybe some of us know him, and he cares about people, so he's talking about this, and the Congo brother is telling him, "Look, man. If we had killed them, more of them would have come still. It wouldn't have changed anything. You know what I mean? Nobody's saying this didn't happen. Black people didn't collaborate with them. But my question is, why did they spare the Jews who worked with Hitler? The conversation is about this is what Germany's Nazi Germany did to them. This is what Hitler did to the Jews. When they're talking about the Holocaust, there's no talk of Jews that helped this thing. Why should we be so into this? We all know that we have problems and we go hard against the Mama killed more Africans than the whites, right?
As much as I agree with you, I think that when somebody comes on the personal level, we should be able to accept that. On the national level, I don't think we are going to accept that as a people. We can't accept the fact that because they were collaborators, we are guilty as the white people. No, because you see, first slavery started as a subjugation, and then it became the economic structure, so that you could not do without engaging in slavery. To that extent, we come to the black people. But when somebody comes to the individual level, but when I meet somebody like a black person, something like that, so just accusing us of selling them, I think we should be able to accommodate it based on what we have. I don't know whether you know this. There are some people up till now who regard the people as slaves. Last I think I made this on the first, I don't know whether 2 weeks ago or I think when the other discussion when it was it was created by Percy Anoche. I talk about a name like Donko. Whenever you hear Donko, it means a person comes from one of his relatives, one of his great grandfathers was a slave. The Nzuma say Kanga. I don't know how they say it other languages, but at least I know it for Nzuma and then for tea. They say Donko. They got to be a Donko, which means that none in the bush and be, Nasifu be, ancestor be, no ye or Aqua. At least at the time when people can bully or join the system. So if I know this, I don't know. That some time ago in the Sardinia palace, you had people who had their eyelids removed, the back of their teeth removed, their teeth, and those who had their eyelids removed, they couldn't, when they slept, they didn't close their eyes. Some had their nose chopped off, and some had their bones. What is the tip of they had their bones used as they could play percussion with their bones, their hand bones.
All right, Rasta, can you hear me?
I think we should be able to accommodate a personal level the way it does. If a brother comes from the diaspora and makes that accusation based on such things like this, based on this knowledge, we should be able to accept that accusation.
Bergen have some very interesting points, but Prof, you want to say something? Okay.
I want to come. Yeah.
You're breaking a little bit. I don't hear anything you just say.
I think we should go to another point. I think the point's been pretty much made, and for the sake of time, I'm just suggesting, right? Because I think this thing has a time limit. So, and I know Prof, you have something to say. If you could just take it up from there. And I'm not stepping the moderator's job. I'm just thank you.
Rastafari, right? Man, give thanks. I think that I support the whole idea of a program that will be deep to the topic of slavery, right? Because there's a lot to unravel. But I just want to make a quick comment in response to Macus Garvey's declaration of Negro rights, and put a little bit of context, just a quick context. So in 1857 in the United States, there was a case known as Dred Scott versus Sanford, and the judge who issued a proclamation in this case, his name was Justice B. Taney. And the proclamation he issued was that the Negro has no rights that the white man is bound to respect.
Yeah.
Right. The Negro has no rights that the white man is bound to respect. So when Macus Garvey comes here in 1916, 1917, this is what he's confronted with, a situation where the Negro has no rights, and he takes it upon himself to respond to that by creating the Universal Negro Declaration of Rights. So just a quick context.
Thank you. Give thanks, man. Yeah.
All right. Cool.
Do this, my lord. Raskwame, do you have a question too?
Yeah, I just want to say something. I think it was about the brother. I don't know. The brother who spoke, is it Martin?
Yes.
Yeah, he was talking about because anytime we put the blame on ourselves, or we try to, this is what is going to be happening. We will be fighting among ourselves. We will never end the conversation, because when you check it critically, they were saying slave trade, and trade, you have to trade like in the modern times. You trade with currency. That time we had no currency, we had no nothing. So how come they say okay? So anytime, I think that is how I'm seeing. I think it's deliberate. Anytime we talk about this and we try to portion blame on ourselves, that is what is going to happen. That is what is going to happen. We will be fighting ourselves. the conversation will never end. Because this one will say, oh, your ancestors told us. This one will say, no, he did not told you. This one say, oh, no, you see, it's going to go back and forth, you know. So I think we have to find proper way to put this thing, you know. Because there was no, we had no currency. Did we? If anybody, I don't know, I'm not sure about that though. So what were you trading in? What actually were you trading in? Like how was the trade being done?
Yeah, I agree with you, brother.
Please, a quick one. Before you respond to that, I also have a concern I'd like to share. I think we are asking whether there was a slave trade or there was a slave raid. I think there have been some scholars who have put more work into establishing the fact that there was more of a slave raid than a slave trade. Because I think one king, when he was requested to bring in slaves, I think the trading had been established, and now black people depended on white people for trade. But then the culture of selling humans as goods was not something very popular with African kings. And so when the demand for human beings instead of the normal goods came up, I think some of the kings, they didn't have anything to give. They were not even in a position to trade because they didn't have humans that they could trade. The culture of selling human or selling human or barter trade humans wasn't popular with us. And so some scholars have thrown more light on the slave raid concept, where even when we say chattel enslavement happened here, the mindset was that Europeans invested in divisions, in wars on the continent. And so where they invested in some wars, prisoners of war or tribes that are defeated, sometimes the enslaver came in to raid such people. And so the conversation, as I'm privy to, is more of a slave raid than a slave trade. Secondly, I think reparative justice follows the conversation about repatriation. And so I think when we black people or Africans make the argument about reparative justice, one of the ways to rubbish that conversation is to say you sold each other into slavery, and so reparation is not something to consider. We listened to a presentation by Ambassador Frankai, who was working on, I think, some CARICOM organizations. And it looks like CARICOM was interested in repatriation, and they made some presentation to the extent, I think United Nations declared a certain year as a year for African descent. And according to Ambassador Frankai, when that year was declared as the year of African descent, the conversation about repatriation and reparation was supposed to be on the table. But then the UN body that was mandated to sort of look into the presentation by CARICOM and others wasn't even set up. So it looks like on the international front, repatriation and reparation is not a conversation that the, should I say, Europeans are ready to have with black people. But then my question here is, Africans at home and Africans in the diaspora, currently, do we still see repatriation as one of the solutions to our problems? Do Africans on the continent think that should our brothers return, we will see much development or progress on the continent? Does African in the diaspora think that should we return to Africa, maybe we can improve our lot? I remember a conversation with Muta Baruka, an interview with Muta Baruka, when I asked whether repatriation was still relevant. And I think his response was that some of the Africans who once upon a time were about repatriation, now, okay, for him, Muta Baruka, he is living the best of both worlds. He can live in Europe, he can live in Africa, he can live anywhere he wants to. So if he has the ability to live anywhere he wants to, why should he be focused on resettling in Africa? And so my question is, diasporan continental Africans, do we still see repatriation? Like during Garvey time, they felt when you repatriate, you send skilled workers to Africa, they are going to help with of the African nation. Do we still see that today? Because from where I sit, most people who are about repatriation are businesses that want to maybe improve or get some advantage, achieve some advantage, which is good. Africans who want to do some businesses here see the need in getting citizenship and all that. But is it a general, like Macus Garvey, I think he was trying to address the plight of poor people. He was trying to relieve, he thinks the best thing to address the issue of poverty in the West was to repatriate black people so that they build a home for themselves. Like he said, where is the black man's government? Where is this man of big affairs? I didn't see any, so I'll help create it. Those who are repatriating, are they also coming back to Africa with the same concept of wanting to recreate the black man government that Garvey? These are a few questions that I have. I give thanks for the opportunity.
I would really want to ask that you tell us what your answer before. I'd love to hear what have you observed, because you are in Ghana, right? What would you say would be a quick answer to that yourself?
My Lord, I see government efforts, like you mentioned, the Joseph project of the NPP. I think it started Rawlings emancipation, bringing emancipation celebration to Ghana, Kufuor, the Joseph project, Mahama, granting citizenship to about 35 Ghanaians, Kufuor granting 126 citizenship to Africans in the Year of Return program. It seems there is something going on, but some of the concerns that has been, some of these things that the government are doing, they are just, it's like people are trying to pay in some money to get some deeds. It's like few people who are interested. It doesn't seem there is a program. It doesn't seem the government are interested. And I don't see a government to government, like the government of Ghana dealing with the government of Jamaica, or African governments dealing with the SEED region. I don't see that. It's on that basis that I would think that maybe it's like we as part of our development, we think the diasporans returning will aid our development. But from the level where I see it, it looks like it's more an individual affair. If somebody has enough money at home or abroad, he thinks he can repatriate, he'll go through the channels and try and get himself a citizenship. But for the poor in the diaspora, I don't think there is any opportunity for them to return to Africa, which I think was Macus Garvey's dream of sending such people to Africa. So I think that's...
Gifton, can I check in real quick? So on a certain front, Jerry Rawlings made a visit to Jamaica, a very famous visit. He went to the Rastafari camp, went to go beat Bingi with them and all of that. It was all over the newspapers in Ghana at the time. That was reaching out. That to me was very significant. We also know that the country of Haiti, for instance, and Haiti is a country that we have to set up to discuss on its own. But Haiti has also made inroads at trying to become part of the African Union. There's a lot that is going on, but it has to be, like Macus Garvey said, it has to be organized and centralized. We have to bring it all together. So there are some of those things going on. But the point really that I want to make is about the reparation. We have to be very careful when we're talking about reparations, because what value in dollar terms or whatever it is that we are asking for in reparations can we put on the many years of bloodshed that has occurred in the name of slavery, the slavery of our people? We should be careful, because once we receive any reparation, we have lost the moral right to go back and say anything else. Yetiamoka. I am confused. We should not receive anything in monetary terms as a form of reparation. That's my viewpoint. I think that we should never be tempted to do that. We should always maintain the high ground that you have wronged us, and we are going to stay with that till the end. Now, let's talk about real reparation. What's the real reparation? Let's have a new reset. Let's have a reset of the systems that govern the world. Because why is it that Africa produces the resources, but we're still poor? Why is it that an ounce of gold sells for how much versus a Gucci watch or a Nike pair of shoes? Let's reset all of that. Once we reset that, we have respectable business where it was like maybe back then when there was barter, right? When there was barter, when they came in, they put their things down, and our ancestors didn't like how much of it they put down. They would not let them go away with their gold. Let's have a reset of all these things. Then there would have been some reparations made. And then maybe we can take our foot off the gas small and say, yeah, maybe, these people are sorry, so we are going to. But until then, if we are tricked into the situation where we are like, oh, reparations, and remember, who will receive the reparations? The politicians. The same politicians that we cannot trust are the ones who will receive any reparations if it comes in the form of money. So these politicians take their money, blow it again on our behalf, and then we have lost the moral right to go back and say anything about somebody wronging us, because they paid us off already. Not said. That's just what I want to say at this time. Give thanks.
Give thanks. Give thanks. Touching on some serious things,
Yeah, no. It's quite
if there's nothing else, let me share one thing as a buttress for something that you said, Rascal. You did mention that Amy Garvey, right? No, not Amy Garvey, sorry. That was Du Bois, right? Du Bois' wife was very instrumental in the setting up of GBC and all of that. Yeah. And you said something that ties into something that I've heard when growing up. I think I've shared this with you before. When Kwame Nkrumah said, man set it up GBC, the one from what tournament to. Right? Because at some point, I think that GBC started going a bit commercial, and there was way too many commercials on GBC versus what the original idea was, just as you stated, right, with advice from Du Bois' wife. So Kwame Nkrumah had that idea of using GBC as an educational outlet rather than as a commercial outlet that was supposed to be used in advertising products. So there's this famous quote of Kwame Nkrumah which said that he was talking to have said, to wait, I didn't set up GBC to be used to advertise Mentholatum. Because I think at the time there was a famous brand of Mentholatum that was always on the Kwame Nkrumah was like, no, that's not the idea. The idea is to use this as an educational tool. So that's just to buttress that point you made about W.E.B. Du Bois' wife. Give thanks.
Yeah, can I say something?
Yes, go ahead.
All right. I think that I want to agree with Kofi Asante, who talked about a slave trade, a slave raid instead of a slave trade. I think I want to say that it began as a slave trade, as a slave raid, and later became a slave trade. Because there were several kingdoms. I think there was one in Benin, for instance, where the British gave them an ultimatum to a chief who had abolished slavery in his land to reinstate slavery. And they bombed his, they had their gunboat diplomacy, and they bombed him till they had to do what they wanted. So I think that there was a slave trade at a point in time where some people, it's the same thing as we have now. If you are a chief or you are a king and you are reluctant to engage in slavery, they just he will sell his people to the white people. And so several of our chiefs dealt in it directly or indirectly. But I think that moving forward, what are we learning from this? After all that we have heard, what are we learning from this? Where do we go from here? What are we going to do with all this knowledge we have gathered? Because when you consider China, they have put all this into the center of humiliation, and they have sworn never to go through this again. So that is what is pushing Chinese development. They are trying to avoid create a situation where that center of humiliation will never happen again. And you can see that Chinese are doing wonders now. So how are we going to move forward? How are we going to use this knowledge? What are we going to do about that? Thank you very much. Did you hear what I said?
Part of it, just the ending. We missed the ending a little bit.
Okay, very well. Let me come back. I said that that happened to them in the French of humiliation. Okay, yes, okay. They came in the French of humiliation, and they have sworn never to let it happen again. I don't think that Africa has come to that point where we have said, okay, on the ethnic group level, on the national level, never to make this thing okay again. I think that before they are looking back at something, they are running away from something. Something is pushing them. Can we also carve something out of this conversation we're having now, the knowledge we have gathered now from this conversation? Where do we move from here? How do we carve something like that? What are we going to take to move forward out of this conversation so that we can carve something for ourselves, like the center of humiliation that the Chinese are running away from, which is driving. I think that's the main thing driving their development, because they were humiliated by the white people. We started at in places in Shanghai. There was this. There were on the notice board, dogs and Chinese not allowed. The British had that right there in Shanghai, in several cities in China. And they have termed that as a center of humiliation, and they have so never to let it happen again. Do we have something like that? If we don't have something like that, can we use this conversation to create something like that, to initiate something like that? That is that is my contribution.
Okay, so can I say one more thing, please? I think the historical fact is also important, right? We have to call the fact a fact. If we say we sold our brothers into slavery, the idea is that it was a blanket thing whereby we were like, for instance, let's take Galamsey as an example. You know how everybody can just practically grab a shovel and go into the forest and free will go, even though it's illegal? Was it like that? No, it wasn't. It was organized by a group of people. So, boss, brother, if you suggest that people who were being chased, because remember, it was a small group of people who were chasing everybody else. It's like today you have a gun, and so because of that, an armed robber goes into a house and subdues everybody because of the gun they had. Same thing, at the time they had certain powers through which they could subdue large amounts of people backed by what the white people were supplying them. So now, if they take that and then they go into the hinterland and constantly raid us until at some point it ceases. And let's remember that there were also chiefs up north and things like that who were fighting against these things. There were people who set up territories that you dare not bring that nonsense into my territory. Let's recognize that and not, out of whatever, run and go and accept, okay, we sold you into slavery. No, my ancestors did not sell anybody into slavery. My grandfather was running away from slavery. He was running for his own life. Some other people, yes, they were black or white. Let's find them and give the blame there. But Mimi Nanana, he was running away for his life towards the Salaga wall and things like that, right? Going where he would feel safe, forming groups that were marching against slave raiders. Are we going to come back and carry that load again that we sold our own into slavery? That's not fair. Just say.
Thank you, brethren. Give thanks. Give thanks. Someone will take it. Someone take it up.
My name is.
Yes, my lord, come in. The one in black. You have not said anything since we started, so please.
No, someone was speaking. When the person goes
No.
All right, this time. My name is Bilal.
Yes, sir.
What I'm saying is, this time. This time for the reasoning. This time reasoning. We love this. It's African time. We've got to do more of this reasoning because it's important. It gives us darkness. It gives us the ground for a next step. As the brother is saying, we must take a next step and make these things that we do transform into reality that makes it bring some benefits to us and our people. So, if there was not a market for slavery, there wouldn't be the need for people to go about and capture people and do a thing like that and they call it trade or whatever. But that is what they have done. They have created a market, and right now, slavery don't stop. They call it abolishment and all kind of things that they think of, and then they try to get into our minds and try to play with us. But you know how we go through, how we suffer every day in these people's hands, where they do what they do for us, where we keep falling to their trap and we keep doing, and we still keep living like we do as another level of citizens in the citizens, like another level of human. We are not like the people on a different level. Like when they say at the time of slavery, like slavery started, it was legal. That's what they say. It was legal. They say that. And that's what they did. That's what they have done. That's what they do. And they do. As for us, reparation in London is a big thing. A few people get together now because not a lot of people get together about black people issue, African people issue a lot, you know. Everybody try a thing. So, like the Rastafari organization, EWF, they have a shop somewhere in Britain. I don't remember them anymore. They're almost non-existent. We find 12 types of Israel. Their house is still there in Streatham. They do Friday section. Every Friday they hold meetings, you know. It's all about music, we heard that, about DJing, that's what they do. It's all about music in Streatham. I've not been there for years now, more than 10 years. I've never even passed through there now. So I don't even know how they run things now. But
you made some brilliant point about the reparations, you know, the different
yeah,
takes.
I'm coming on that again. I'm coming on that reparations thing whereby there's an organization where we have this Global African Congress, UK. Global African Congress is a congress over in many countries. Barbados is started in Barbados, right? So you have a Barbados section, but the Indian one is very strong, where the whole solidarity meetings every Sunday, you know, and then monthly meetings, Zoom, especially since the Zoom come in, we do a lot of Zoom meetings. So that's where we meet a lot. Sometimes we have about 30 people, 40 people in the Global African Congress Zoom meeting monthly, you know. So that's a strong thing. And they talk about repatriation. You go to Parliament and lobby Parliament for reparation, special reparations. And then there is this issue about green rats, whereby they're sending people to Rwanda and things like that. Refugees to Rwanda, from England to Rwanda, and both people to Rwanda. They're making a post on the sea, the city people in the boats out here on the sea, and things like that, like small civilians, like they can't keep them on, like there's no land. So we go to Parliament and lobby around that. Small group of people, when you look on the WhatsApp group, it's about 108 and about 120 people in there, and we've got a platform about 50 active participants. So, yeah, it's something going on. But is it enough? I don't think so. I think the suffering level where we hear about some place in Africa, and I think we hear about every day, Africans to rally more and show more solidarity and more involvement in our affairs. So our Macus Garvey, our Kwame Nkrumah, never live in vain. We will never live in vain. We will do something about it. We have to.
Absolutely.
That's what I say. Yeah, man.
Give thanks, brethren. Give thanks. I just want to throw something in there. There are different takes on reparations. I'm sure other people have things to say. There's some people who will say, just like what Jah Beloved was saying right now, the monetary thing, what does it mean? There's some people who will say, this might sound a little cold, but okay, they took our flesh, right? They took the flesh of Africa. They took Africa's life, right? Slavery was about taking Africa's life, right? So reparations would mean we have to take their life. That's what some people will say. It sounds too out there. Whatever way you interpret that, it's not necessarily, some people wouldn't see it as physical. But the conceptual world, the life of the conceptual world they've created, that you're saying is creating the situation where we're always at the bottom, has to make us think about how to get rid of that. Like His Majesty would say, discredit it, destroy it, and abandon it, versus how do we try to manage to deal with this? How can we get better spot in this game? Because that's what we've been doing. We're running in circles for a while. It's all about how do we get this thing to work for us. It wasn't made for us, but how can we get past it? That's what His Majesty is saying. Create something that is meaningful to us. Because that monetary thing, like Jah Beloved was saying, it's not really on our terms, and it's not going to fix the situation. As long as we have a money economy, we're going to have to come back and do it.
We'll never fix the situation. That's what I've been telling to our people here. It's not going to fix the situation. It's nowhere near fixing the situation, because now we live here. If they give us that money, so they give some people in Jamaica money, they give some, or they share it all over wherever we are, and they give us that money. And we live in America, and we live in repatriation is the issue that we should be looking at. Repatriation is the man. Repatriation is real. Repatriation is by repatriation we should also see it like it's happening. It's happening. It's going on. It's not physical alone that we can see as repatriation. It's a shame that our president in Africa these days, they pay so much premium to what they call foreign something. They call it a name. They have a name for it. Foreign something. Like the money that comes from Africa from relatives from Africans here to
the foreign direct investments.
They have a name for it.
Foreign direct investments or kind of thing like that.
Not that they have for it. That's why they have for it. But they do. And you're talking about family. You're talking about just on social level. That kind of money, not governmental level, on individual level. The kind of money will go to Western Union.
I think they call it remittance.
Remittance. That is the name.
Yeah.
I know they are. So they pay so much premium to it. Like it's on bitches, and so and I realize that that money is still bigger than the money that the country are able to generate sometimes. Like Ghana can generate sometimes, but if what Ghana generate sometimes. So is this the way we should go? Is this the way our people should be thinking? We got work to do. The work, every time we think about it, goes bigger than when we started. So I think it's about time we double up and double up more.
Rastafari.
Yeah.
Yes, my lords, we have exhausted the time allotted for the program. So if anybody has any final words or comments, please, we'll take a few minutes and then the presenter will give us his closing remarks and we'll call it a day. So please, does anybody have a final question, comments you want to chip in? It should be brief.
Yeah, I'll be very brief. I have a final question, but actually I think we should keep this for another time because I think it could also be a topic on its own. But it's something that you mentioned, Rasquisi Anoche, and I want us to think about that. That issue of automatic citizenship, right? And how practical is that? Because what's the criteria, you know? And then when somebody comes in the country and then they decide, okay, remember there are all these 56 countries, and so they can choose from everywhere, right? It would be a great idea. How practical would it be, though, for all the 56 countries to agree? If not, only a few countries going to mop up everybody. It's a discussion on its own. So I just want to lay that out there for another day's discussion. With thanks.
Yeah. I think that I agree with Kwesi Bako that we should not quantify reparations in terms of money. But if possible, why we look at them in terms of economic independence, economic sovereignty, the returning of things like the artifacts in their museums and things like that are part of reparation, not in terms of quantify to get money. Because like you are saying, they can give you some $3 and forget about it. And the last thing is, from this conversation, what are we moving forward with? Like I've said, the Chinese have got something like a center of humiliation, and every Chinese is trained from the home, school, whatever, to be able to work in such a way that this center of humiliation will never happen again. I don't see that concept in Africa. We have not been able to see slavery as something that we should run away from, something that we should try to make in such a way that we will never see that again. I don't really see something like that. So from this conversation, can we make up something like the Chinese have? Not like trying to say they have this, must have this, but how can we use that experience we have gone through, slavery, to move forward?
Prof, you want to say something? Okay. I don't know if one conversation can do it. I feel your sense of urgency, which I would suggest say, it would be nice to say, you go take it up and push it. What we're trying to do is we're trying to understand what's happening. No, seriously, you have to stop. You have to push the idea, but we can't sit here and formulate something when even some of us don't understand the situation yet. This is not a simple thing where you sit down and you say, this is what happened, or this is what I think. And so that's it. We're still coming to terms with this. How much do we learn about slavery when we're in school? How much have we studied this thing closely? To what extent? So I think we need to understand what happened, then we can formulate the real solutions. But if we just get up and say, the Chinese did this, we should be able to do is your demographic, your situation, the environment, your history. White people can become white. I mean, Chinese people can become white. Let's not forget that. In the dark, if you see a Chinese person moving around, it's no different than a white person. But me, when I'm in the dark, even. What I'm saying is that Africa has a different set of questions to be answering. It doesn't mean we can't look at other people, but we have to formulate something. Because if we keep looking at what other people have, that's what Garvey's generation was going through. Europe has done this, why can't we do it? America has done this, why can't we do it? And we're still, we're still dealing with that. Why can't we do what? Our situation is different. We have a set of questions that no one else is being asked. But I think what you're saying is good. Let's push that. But first of all, we need to really understand our situation. I get a clarity from what Jabelovin is saying. I get clarity from you. Then we make decisions based on that. Because before in Kumar, people were already talking about solutions, but we didn't understand the problem. Sounds disappointing, but we have to try to understand. We have to understand the things we're dealing with. Understand the world. What is this economics we're talking about? What is this history we're talking about? What is politics? All these things have to be dealt with. Like, we want something else besides that understanding of how the world is. If we can get past that, then we're gonna have to deal with this question. We can just patch things up and hope that it works. So I think we need to understand what we're dealing with, and then the answers, the actions will be based on that.
To agree with you, every time that we discuss this on the podcast, every time you're talking about white people, I've always been saying that if you are going to play soccer with somebody, you must study the formation the person is playing, and then build a formation that you can use to defeat that person's formation. So what I think is very true. We must know what is happening, and then we can carve a formation with which we can move forward. So I think I agree with you largely, but understand what is happening, and then be able to devise a plan, strategy, whatever, to move us to where we were to be.
Good thing. Roscoe Fiasanti.
Yes, sir.
I mean, on the platform and things like that. Thank you very much, yes.
All right. Give thanks, Martin. Give thanks,
Prof,
really appreciate
please, it. With all that you've heard, do you have anything to add before we draw the curtains? Prof. Will.
I think he got it. Okay.
Yes, Prof. Will, please, I was asking if there's anything you'd like to add with the comments, suggestions that came on board.
I think that, I'm okay for me. We will have to do all these things. Yeah. Give them.
Yes, my lords. My lord, please, will you give us your closing remarks, Ras Cristiano, and then we'll just draw the curtains down for tonight.
I just want to give thanks that we all got together and reason something about this thing, Garvey, central to our lives. Talk about Black August, remembering all the things that people doing to get free. And I think we have to keep our minds on that we're still fighting to get free, right? And we have to construct something. When Haile Selassie says Africa awaits its creators, it includes constructing something, creating something. And I think we have to take that very, very seriously.
Yes, sir. Give thanks, my lord. My lords, I would like to give thanks for your presence and your contributions that really enriched the conversation. We ask that next presentation will be on Nyabingi, origins and extensions, evolution and resistance. And that will be on 1st September 2024. Will be led by Dr. Kwajo Oponwade, one we mostly call Prof. Wiro. And so in the next 2 weeks, Prof. Wiro will take us through Nyabingi, origins and extensions, evolution and resistance. And please, we ask that we invite once and once, we invite our fellow races. When the Rasa Jonah will share the flyer with us, and we will beg of you to help us in sharing the flyer. We pray that members, enough races will participate in the reasoning so that we will all appreciate some of these deep reasonings, and when we have to make a decision, we will all be on the same page. And so, my lords, please remember to share the flyers immediately we release them. Once again, I want to appreciate you all for your presence. We give thanks.
Thanks.
Rastafari.